Good morning, folks. Papa and my boy here. I told y'all a story about my grandmother. I told y'all a story about my grandmother on wash day. I told y'all about that. Her better half, my grandpa. We called him Pa. I'm sorry, hang on. I got all kinds of company here. No, don't you get by that. I got all kinds of company out here. Her better half, we called him Pa. Raleigh Samuels. My brother's name there. It's my mom's dad. You know, all of them were, my grandpa and grandma both were all born. They were just poor people, lived on a farm, you know, raised on farm ways. I told you about that. They did things the old-fashioned way and never wanted to change. You know, after he bought his little farm over here, Splendora, 10 acres, I told y'all that, and the road went right through the middle. Well, my mom was just a little girl, just a young girl, when they moved in over there. And this little wood heater I've showed y'all the boy found, we put together and gifted to me. She said that was the first kind of heater they had. She remembered one just like that. Then later, my grandpa bought her a big cast iron one, had the water reservoir on it and the bread warmer at the top, you know. And but he went over, when he bought that place, there was no house, there was nothing. And they had a guy help him dig their own well. Move out of the way. You'll knock it over. This is snack time. It's snack time. You ain't too fast. You ain't too fast. Slow down. No, you slow down a minute. Just slow down. You're gonna get indigestion. Go ahead. Donkey indigestion. Anyway, he dug their own well. He cut trees across the road, little old tall pine poles, like a teepee post, you might say. And that's what he made his rafters out of for his house he's gonna build. Peeled them, laid them out, let them dry. All right, this is all. That's it. This bag is gone. That's it. The whole bag. It should have been a pig. Still a donkey. Anyway, that's it. It's all. The bag's gone. The bag's empty. You might as well go on. All of y'all. You and Heidi and Roman. Sophie. Y'all need to go on. Anyway, there was a sawmill out there at Splendora, and in the old days, a log would come in, a round log, and they'd run it down that saw, and it'd cut slabs off 4 sides to make it square. Then they could cut lumber out of it. And those slabs that they cut off had bark on one side. They might be 2 or 3 inches thick. Might say, well, that was a lot of waste. Yeah, maybe. But that was free. They'd give that stuff away. If nobody take it, they burned it. They don't burn nothing no more. That's why you find all these products made out of particle board, chip wood, all that kind of stuff. Wafer board. They don't get rid of nothing. The bark stuff now goes to mulch and stuff for your yard and flower beds. They waste nothing. Kind of like the old ag teacher on one of our tests one time said, what part of a pig, when you butcher it, what part is not used? Modern day stuff, you know, modern day butchery. What part in there? Everybody's thinking, well, hair. No, hair is made into brushes and stuff. Intestines or whatever, sausage casings or whatever. But some went with fertilizer, some went to all kinds of stuff. The only thing not used, and I don't think nobody got it right. Hattie, move. Go knock my camera over. Was the squeal. You can't use a squeal. Anyway, I don't know if that's true or not. That's what was on our test. It was just kind of a bonus question. But oh Lord, what now? I have no more. I have no more. Oh, you're gonna kiss the camera, such a sweet boy. This guy is back and forth. I've already brushed him. He's already eaten. No, really, go on, son. You gotta go on. You just, no more break, no more snacks right now. I'm trying to tell a story. Anyway, I'll get back to my story. You know, my grandpa would go to that sawmill on his wagon, and he would get all of these. I'm trying to put this camera so he don't knock it over. But he keeps going back and forth looking for snacks. There ain't no more snacks right now. It's too early. All right, go back. Go. Come on. You got to go. I'm sorry, folks. This story time is getting to be out of control. It's out of control time here. Anyway, he put them boards. He had his poles for his rafters. You know, he had to build a floor, so they had to get stuff for that floor, so like at the foundation. But he put them boards side by side like that along that wall. Still had the bark on them, and the bark would fall off eventually. Then over where the cracks, they put another little thinner board, smaller board called a bat. They still make siding like that, board and bat. It's wide boards, but they're professionally milled and everything. And
I want to get this stuff off the porch.
just a few minutes, baby, a few minutes. My wife, you know. Hey guys, if you ever get a wife, get one that don't talk. All right, baby. No, it's not. You have to sit in your lap. She sat in your lap. Okay, can you get out? Hang on. Hang on. God. All right, guys, listen here. Between wives, donkeys, goats, I'm having a hard time here. My wife wanted to use a golf cart, and I had her blocked in. She wants me to move some furniture off the patio. Please. Please, you two. You know what? Maybe I should just quit this. Maybe I should just quit this and do it another day. I'm going to try one more time. One more time, and that's it, these two. Heidi out there beating up little JoJo. He needs it. All right, listen here. I'll brush you while we're talking. All right, I'm going to brush him while we're talking, so maybe he'll be still. Done brushed him once. Well, 3 different brushes. And he likes it. But anyway, he built a 2-room house. Look, the back part was a little kitchen. Big wood heater, big stove in it, and a dining table. Out behind that house, the same kind of lumber, he built a smokehouse underneath a big pecan tree. Big old pecan tree. Strangely, the pecan tree was there when he moved there. Never been a house there before. It was there anyway. What his big paper shell and stuff like that. I guess native pecan, I guess. Built his barn out of the same kind of lumber. Kitchen out of the same stuff, house out of the same stuff. Those pine pole rafters all through the house. And eventually, they were able to seal up all that attic, but not in the kitchen because they need that heat to escape, you know, out of the kitchen. They need that heat to escape. So they left it just open up there with the rafters and the tin, but, you know, hot air could get out. By the back door, or the door going into the kitchen, there's always there's a little table, permanent table, Always a little wash basin with a pitcher of water, a bucket of water for drinking, with a dipper in it. You ever seen a dipper? Ever seen a dipper? Oh, they make fancy dippers. Long handle, you know. I've seen them in these punch bowls. Paul had one made out of a gourd. You know what a gourd is? It's kind of, I think it may be in the squash family, pumpkin family maybe. But it's only like so big around at the big end. It's got a handle to be this long. You got to be good. People can't make videos with donkeys. I'm finding that out. Let's move my camera again. He's moving around again. Maybe turn around for me to brush the other side. God, you're so spoiled. You're so spoiled. Anyway, you slice the top of that little round part off and slice it off and dig the seed out. Then you hang it up and let it dry. Or you may let it dry first, I guess. And dump them seed out. Clean it out good. And that makes a great gourd. I mean, a dipper. Great dipper. I don't know, guys. Story time is not the same when these guys are involved, okay? It's just not. It's not the same. I keep having to move my camera around, and they just keep getting in my face. Anyways, my grandpa had a little donkey, or mule, I guess call it a mule, that he plowed with. You know, every inch of their ground, they're the 5 acres on the side where the house was. 5 acres on the other side is where he cut poles and some cross ties to sell, and that created some little meadows for his animals to graze in. And but every inch of that 5 acres on the side where the house was covered in something like either a yard, a small yard, a corral, not real big, a little barn, not real big. The little barn had 2 stalls in it. A stall for the cow, a milk cow, and a stall for his little mule. Now, it had a lean-to shed off of it in there because he always had 2 cows. Because when one wasn't giving milk, it'd make it where the other one, you know, you get her bred at the right time. So there would always be one giving milk. He had a little small pen where he kept 2 hogs. He'd buy 2 pigs every spring, raise them through the summer, feed them corn out of his cornfield, things out of the kitchen, scraps, I guess, and vegetables that might have went bad or whatever they couldn't use. You know, it's got too ripe or whatever. And then in the fall, first real cold spell, he would butcher one. And that was a family affair, and one day we'll talk about that. We all would show up to help out. And how he processed all that stuff. Because they didn't have no refrigeration. And they did have an ice box. Well, we all have ice boxes. No, I do. I sometimes refer to our refrigerator as an ice box. I was like, bring me something out of the ice box. You know, bring me a glass, this and that out of the ice box. And the kids would go, grandkids, what? All right, the fridge. Okay. An ice box was a little box. It looked like a refrigerator, just smaller, usually made out of wood, maybe been made out of metal. 2 compartments with shelves at the bottom. In the top compartment, you open it up and you set a block of ice in there. You buy ice in these ice houses. All the little towns had an ice house for that very reason. A block of ice, 25 to 50 pound block, whatever size you wanted. You set it in that little ice box and close that door. It had a little drain tube that went out the bottom as it melted. And there was vents that would let the cold air drift down. Nothing was ever cold, it stayed cool. That's why my grandpa would take his milk, put in a jug that had a little handle on it, and lower it down in his well because that water was ice cold. Out in the field, probably a 2-acre cornfield and probably a 2-acre garden, because they raised everything they eat, everything. They hardly bought anything. They'd go to town. My mom would take them to town salt and pepper and flour, maybe some cornmeal. You know, they didn't bought very little. Everything they eat, they raised. In the spring, they would even go out and pick berries along the roads. There was berries, blackberries everywhere, and muscadines in the fall. And they would pick these things by the buckets. You go home and can them, or make jelly out of them, or the berries they'd can them and put them away. And then during the wintertime, they could either get them out and cook them down for jelly, or they could make a cobbler. I love my grandma's cobblers. But everything they raised, they put up. And my grandpa was very good about, as poor as he may have been, helping others. The abundance of their crop, stuff they couldn't use, and it's too good to give to the pigs. You know, they just couldn't use it. They would give it away. They didn't sell it, they give it away. On Sundays, when a guy would come by and pick them up and take them to church, they went to the same church one of their neighbors did, and they'd ride to church with him. And they didn't go to our church, they went to another one. But anyway, they would load up 2 or 3 baskets of extra vegetables that they wasn't going to be able to use or couldn't use, and didn't want to feed them to the pigs. And they'd take them and set them on the steps of the little church they went to, and people come out of church, they'd just get them an armful of this, armful of that. You know, that's what kind of people they were. Tell you a story about my grandpa. He was so well liked. There's 2 old thugs. Now they thugs. I knew them. They was a little older than me, but I knew them. And they'd fight, steal. They did everything. I don't know why they wasn't in jail, but they wasn't. They didn't like nobody. Nobody liked them. My old grandpa, the only one time he ever had a vehicle, an old international flatbed truck, army green. Somebody built a wooden bed on it. And he'd put a big old wooden box on the back of that bed and nailed it down. That was his truck. Anyway, he had a flat. He was beside the road. Poor fella trying to change that flat. Here come these 2 old thugs. They was mean to everybody. They was mean to their old mama and daddy. And they saw the old man, and they turned around, went back, and changed that flat for him. And just as polite to him. And he's telling me about it later. I said, "Oh, Lord, Paul, that guy's bad news." He said, "Oh, no." He said, they got out of their old car, and they said, "Hello, Mr. Samuels. Can we help you?" He's the nicest boys he'd ever met. Oh, Lord. Anyway, he was a good guy. But not only did he raise his own 3 kids, my mom and 2 brothers, he took in 3 orphans later on. My mom and all of them are still at home, still in school. And there were 3 orphans that him and my grandma took them in and raised them. And it's the kind of people they were, you know. What you did. That's what you did back then. So, on that little farm, they raised not only themselves, but 6 kids. 6 kids. Put them through school. And they all got grown and married and went their own ways, you know. My mom married my dad and moved over here. And my grandpa plowed with a mule. A little mule, I can't remember his name. I think it was like Little Jack, I think. That name keeps coming back to me. Little brown mule. About the color of Ivy, but a little bit bigger. Not a lot bigger, but a little bit bigger than Ivy. And he plowed with that mule. And he'd put them reins around his neck, never to, you know. And he would hold that plow with his hands to balance it, you know. The wooden handles, and it went down to that metal plow. And he'd plow that whole place, all of his garden. That's 4 acres that he plowed. And there was probably another acre, like I say, in the yard, chicken yard, pen, barns, corral, stuff like that. Those 4 acres he plowed. And there's no old song about Walter Brenham. If you call it a song, you know, Walter Brenham kind of talks, whatever they call it. So he kind of talks it along with music. And when I drove a special needs bus, I'd heard this song forever. And I used to sing it to Levi. Levi rode my bus. Kim's boy, he's autistic. And as Levi says, he's amazingly autistic. Yeah, he's amazing. But anyway, my aide, the lady that worked with me on that special needs bus, she could sing beautiful. And God love her, she passed away a couple of years ago. But she would sing all these songs to these kids, and they all loved it. Well, I had heard this old song by Walter Brimley called Old Rivers. I don't know if you ever heard it or not. And he's kind of talking. And he would sing along, he'd say, in old rivers and plow those rows straight and deep. I'd come along behind, kicking up clods with my own bare feet. I'd hear that, not only when I say it, but anytime I heard that, it took me back immediately to my grandpa, because I would walk along behind him in little cut-off shorts, barefooted, him plowing. And I was kicking them clods. That dirt, and you rose up that plow, would be soft, cool. And I just kicked them clods everywhere. And at the end of the row, almost every row, he stopped and tell me a story. He loved telling stories. He had some good stories. He watched a gunfight one time as a boy. He saw a real gunfight in Anderson, Texas. He said him and his dad had went to town to get supplies. Two men come out in the street like you'll see on TV. He says, just like on Gunsmoke. He said, they opened fire. He don't know if they got killed. Both of them got hit. They shot each other. But he says, it's scary. He said, people running in every direction. Anyway, my dad would say, let me come plow it for you. Oh, no, I want to do it myself. I like plowing my mule. And he did. And the thing was, that mule was extra smart. Maybe the smartest mule I ever met. Well, besides Ivy. This mule, at the end of the road, and I may be getting this wrong, my grandpa would go, he, or haw, one of the other, but those two sounds. He, and that mule would turn left, or right. He hollered it again, he'd turn back left again, and then make another road. Or if it was haw, he'd turn right. Haw again, he'd turn back right, come right back down another road. And he never used them reins, just had them around his neck. When he got through plowing at the end of the row, he'd unhook his plow, and him and his little mule walked back to the barn, side by side, not leading him, just side by side. He'd put him in, feed him, rush him down, rub him down. And little Jack, I'm pretty sure that's his name, little Jack. My grandpa loved him. I told you about my grandma washing, and how they did. I'll tell you one more thing about my grandpa. My mom, this come from my mom. They're all grew up poor, but everybody else around them was poor too. And during the spring and summer, mosquitoes be bad. And they didn't have no screens on their house. They didn't have no fans. They didn't have electricity back then. They didn't have no, sure they didn't have no air conditioning. So every night, they'd all go out on the porch every evening, and they'd sing and tell stories, and that's why my mom knew so many stories, I guess, listening to her dad and her mom. And I inherited some of those. But my grandpa would take an old pot, just an old pot. They didn't cook in it, just an old pot. And he'd go out in the barnyard, and he'd pick up dry cow poop. You think, what in the world would he do that for? Well, it doesn't burn, it just kind of smokes. Just smokes. He'd light it, get it to smoking, and take it in and sit on top of the stove. He'd come back out, and they'd sit and sing and talk and carry on for whatever amount of time. And then he would go in and bring it back outside and set it in the yard. And when they went in the house, there'd be no mosquitoes because they'd been smoked out. There'd still be some lingering smoke, but the mosquitoes wouldn't come back all night. So I said, Mom, didn't y'all smell like smoke when you went to school? She said, well, yeah, I'm sure we did, but everybody did it, so everybody smelled the same. Everybody smelled the same. Everybody smelled like smoke. Yeah. But poor folks had poor ways, and not all of them were bad. Yeah, they raised some good kids, some good families. And there's other stories about him, you know, I come up with, like especially on hog killing day, and how he did his meat and stuff. And we'll do that one day. We'll talk about that. But I will say it's about his old smokehouse. Smokehouse, I told you back then, a big old wide slabs of wood, some of them that thick, dirt floor. Very cool. You open that old door and walk in there, just as cool as it could be. Almost like air conditioning, but just cool. Underneath that big tree. And there was 3 walls, almost 3 walls, were covered in shells. They would be from floor to top in canned goods that they put up. Because they eat out of there all year. And in one corner, there was like a 6-foot box. About 3 foot tall, and it was sitting on like skids where it wouldn't be touching the floor, touching the dirt. And the bottom of it, about 3 foot wide, 3 foot high, 6 foot long, whatever. And had some little holes drilled in the bottom. And when he butchered his hog, that's where he would put that hog. They would lay a layer of salt, a layer of meat, layer of salt, layer of meat, all the way to the top. And that salt would cure that meat. And all year long, they needed some meat to season their beans or to cook with or whatever. They went to that box, raised it up, scraped the salt off, get the piece of meat they wanted, rinse it off, go cook with it. So, anyway, I want to tell you about my grandpa, Raleigh Samuels. Middle name was Nehemiah. Born back in late 1800s. Passed away in, I think, 1974. And one more thing about his dad was wounded in the Civil War. He was a Confederate soldier. He was wounded up here at the Battle of Galveston. I think hit the hip. Got hit in the hip. Anyway, he survived, but he limped the rest of his life. Well, my grandpa, you know, he was a young man working in the woods. He got his foot crushed, and back then they didn't do much to him. So they had to wrap it up, just keep on going, keep on trucking. Well, he limped. Got older, he limped. In fact, actually, a year or so before he passed away, he lost circulation in that foot, and they had to amputate it. And from that point on, I really think it was kind of downhill for him, because he's put in a wheelchair and couldn't get out and do nothing no more. And I think it really took a toll. So, my mom said that she saw her grandpa limp all her life, then she saw her dad limp all her life. She's not around to see me limp. Maybe it's inherited. All right, I'm gonna cut this off. My little friends have Heidi's lay over taking a nap, her and Roman, and my donkey friend is out in the yard grazing after he got all the snacks he could eat. And my wife, she's went on down to see Kim, so she's not hollering at me. All right, guys, I'm going to let y'all go. I hope y'all enjoyed the story, and I'll get this out to you. And y'all take care. I love you. There's 2 more things I want to say about my grandpa and my grandma. Whew. I've been helping Gigi. I had to stop the video and help her move some furniture. They didn't have a lawnmower. And they hoed their grass. A little blade of grass would stick up, and they'd hoe it. Just dirt. And they would walk around the yard, both of them. They both had a hoe. And just kind of walking and looking, and a little grass stick up somewhere. They hoed it up, smooth it off, keep walking. Their yard was completely dirt. My grandma had flower beds, rose bushes, all kinds of different plants. They had their place. The yard itself was dirt. No grass. No grass. Now, one more thing, and I'm going to close this thing. coffee. Yeah, I like coffee. I drink a lot of coffee, probably too much coffee. Especially on a cool morning. This morning was so cool and nice, you know, it was just a nice morning out here. And I came out and I had, I think, 3 cups of coffee the time the sun come up. Oh, gets a little bit cooler. I'm gonna build a fire there and do my coffee on this here open fire. And y'all can join me with it. But their coffee, they would take their old coffee pot and just pour grounds out. They never measure them. They just poured them. Just poured them in there and then dump some water on it, sit on the stove and let it boil. When it got to boiling good, they'd pour them a cup of coffee and drink it. And it got down kind of low, they'd add more water, maybe more grounds, and let it keep boiling. It'd boil on the stove off and on probably all day. In the bottom of that cup, be that much grounds at the bottom of your cup. You had to be careful you got to the bottom or you're going to get a mouthful of grounds. Nothing worse than a bunch of grounds in your mouth. But anyway, Gigi and I would go over at night to visit with them after we got married. And Kim was just a baby. And my grandpa and my grandma would tell us stories sitting around the wood heater. And that old coffee pot sitting on the wood heater just boiling away. And they said, you want a cup of coffee? Well, I'll drink a cup of coffee. Gigi always passed. You know, I don't want none. And I'd sit there and sit back. And you could cut that coffee with a knife. It was thick. It was strong. That's the way they liked their coffee. All right, guys, I'm going to let this go. And I'm going to post this thing later on. Not sure what day it'll come out. Maybe Monday. We'll see. All right, I'll catch you guys later. I love you guys. Y'all take care.